Well, one thing is we have John Kerry on his way here, and effectively wants to do two things: prop up Ukraine, perhaps by sort of directly expressing support for Ukraine. Some people think that maybe this Russian intervention actually adds some impetus to the push to get this IMF-led aid package. The IMF comes later in the week, and on the other hand, he wants to try to punish Russia with whatever sort of leverage they have. He spent the better part of yesterday on the phone with a whole host of foreign ministers. Have a listen.
It's really 19th century behavior in the 21st century, and there is no way to start with that if Russia persists in this, that the G8 countries are going to assemble in Sochi. That's a starter.
I mean, one thing is he's been talking about the ruble weakening, so we're seeing more of that today, or the prospect of more of that happening today. So I think Kerry thinks, and the U.S. thinks, that some of the punishment for Russia will be self-inflicted in any case, but they are talking about a bunch of different options, including asset freezes, visa bans, maybe trade sanctions. The U.S. does $40 billion of trade with Russia, kicking Russia out of the G8, or at least not going to the G8, which is supposed to be in Sochi in June. And one U.S. official has even dropped the idea of considering sanctions on Russian banks.
Meanwhile, what's happened to the proposed aid program? Ukraine, Ryan, still needs, at least $15 billion over the next couple of years, doesn't it? I know that's been slightly put on the back burner, hasn't it, since events over the weekend?
It has, and there's a sense that that's okay, because while they are asking for $15 billion of aid, and while they do need $13 billion over the next 12 months, there is a little bit of a lull in their debt repayments between now and June, when some sizable payments need to be made. So I think that they have a little bit of time. I mean, there are some people out there that think that the idea of Russian military intervention in Crimea would actually complicate an aid package. I was discussing that yesterday with one of the country's richest people, Petro Poroshenko, and he was saying, well, he didn't agree with that, because he pointed out that the IMF is already working with countries like Moldova and Georgia, both of which have Russian troops on their soil in the same kind of statelet situation that we would now appear we have in Ukraine. So it looks like they've got a little bit of breathing room in terms of time to get this financial assistance from the IMF. They will be very mindful that it's important to get it lined up. The Ukrainians have said they'd like to have it in place by April, so as to not lose the initiative, because there are some people out there that think that actually the Russian military intervention, in fact, could strengthen their hands with the IMF, maybe lead to less severe conditionalities with the lending, maybe more money than they were originally to get, faster money, as this gets more geopolitical and more pressure comes from countries like the United States on the IMF to do something.